Good morning and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write multiple genres, including Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
Stop.
Do you guys hear voices? Someone's speaking to me.
The angels are with us today.
Sorry.
That just made me realize I have no idea where my phone is, but I do know that it's not on silent. So
well,
hoping that.
Yeah, so so I don't know who's able to follow the chat today, but I am not. I'm in charge of the episode, which makes me already enough of a space cricket. So also trying to follow the chat won't work for me. So forgive me if you're telling me hello or something. Hopefully the ladies can help us all keep track of what's going on there. Welcome, and we appreciate you. If you like what we do, spread the word. Also like and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Okay, so we start every episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast with a segment we like to call What's Up. It's where we check in with each other and find out, well, what's up? So, Jen, what's up with you?
Well, I'm sick. Yeah, so last week I had a killer headache, and I thank you ladies very much for just allowing me to take the day off, and you guys just kind of stepping up, and I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, I've gotten a cold of some sort, and it's mostly bad at night. You know how that gets, you get all congested. So, but other than that, things are good. I had a nightmare last night. Can I tell that really quick?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are gonna laugh at me. So the nightmare was we were all together as a family. We were doing it was something at the church. I think it was very Christmassy. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's Christmas Eve. I'm like, wait, it's Christmas Eve. I don't have my shopping done. So like in my mind, it was Christmas Eve, but I was at the same point I am right now with what I've got. And so like, I'm not like behind or whatever. We never go crazy with Christmas because we had so many kids. Like it's a very, but still you want some kids to have something to open. Like I have family that I've not bought for yet. And I was just like, in a panic. And so I'm like, how do I sneak out of this Christmas Eve service and go shopping? And my husband's like, oh, it'll be fine. And I'm like, you don't understand.
I know, because the gifts is really only just one part of it, isn't it? Like,
it really is.
You're kind of like, but wait, I was going to clean out the microwave before everybody showed up or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So you have this whole to-do list that it's not just about the shopping, is it? And so it's a really busy time of year. So yeah, that would be a nightmare for you to lose all of that planning and preparation time.
Right. But
I think everyone can relate.
Yeah. So at least I have over a week, so I'm good. How about you, Tina? Oh, wait, should we go with Tina next, or you want Tina to?
Tina can be next. That's great.
All right, Tina, let's hear what's up with you.
Yeah, we want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Okay, Tina went and gave a talk, and we wanted to hear about the outcome of her talk, but we made her wait for the what's up, and so now we're all eager.
Right. I got asked to, I can't hear myself, so if you guys can't hear me, tell me.
We can hear you.
I got asked to give the Christmas devotion at a women's event at a church, and that was last night. And I was so nervous. The problem was I went to church the night before, and somebody said, we have places set for 120 people. And I think the largest group I've ever spoken in front of before was maybe 40. And the minute they said that, my stomach started flipping. And it just kept right on flipping all day. All day yesterday, I was so nervous. I don't know. And I've been teaching Bible studies for almost 14 years. So I've stood up and talked in front of people a lot. And I don't know why I was so nervous.
I feel like when we are called upon for something like that, there is a part of us that is worried about our vessel. And we know that we have a message, but we think that it's going to be somehow messed up because we know the vessel that it's being delivered in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we kind of feel like either people are going to pay too much attention to my vessel and not see the message, or I'm going to somehow mess up delivering the message. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we kind of feel like a burden to do it right that gives us this feeling of like, I don't even know if I can do this. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And then to find out that it's going to be 120 people and that just opens up the options for people to not like what you have to say, doesn't it? So like the odds are increased that there will be haters in the audience. You know what I mean? If it's just this little group of 6 people, you can make eye contact with each person and maybe say, I think you didn't quite understand what I meant by X, Y, or Z. Let me take a moment to explain, but not when you're talking to 120 people.
Right. Right. And so then I'm like, okay, they didn't really tell me when I was going to be talking. And I found out like right before they served dinner that it was going to be after dinner.
Oh,
so
no.
Now it's like, oh, do I eat?
Can you eat? Could you eat? Like, I mean, I would not be able to eat.
And actually my stomach felt better.
Oh, good. See, now you know. Yeah.
Yeah, they had salad and baked potato bar and baked chicken. So it was like, it wasn't anything that was going to really upset my stomach. So I did eat. And then this one lady runs up to the lady in charge at the last minute and whispers in her ear. And the lady nodded and handed her the microphone. And this is a lady that had attended my devotion at the women's retreat I went to.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like this really enthusiastic, kind of loud lady. Her name's Suzanne.
Mm-hmm. I don't know any people like that.
Well, she's just like excited about life. Like she's always excited about life. And she just like gave me the greatest introduction.
Aww.
And I'm like thinking about it now. I was so nervous. I don't even know if I thanked her for that great introduction. I mean,
well, thank her now. Thank you. Is her name Susan?
Suzanne. Yeah.
Suzanne,
she just like made me out to be like really great. So I was like, okay, no pressure.
I mean, you are kind of great, Tina. And just in case you didn't know, I mean, you are kind of great. And you do have something to offer to people. And I hope that you really believe that because, I mean, there's a reason she said nice things about you. She wasn't just making it up.
Agreed.
Right. So I was able to get through my talk. There was one chunk that I forgot to say because I was nervous. I was able to get a few laughs in there. People laughed when I was trying to be funny. So that was good. And when I said I was a Greek geek, this one lady just kind of started almost jumping up and down in her chair. So that was encouraging because I was like, okay, I'm going to give you a lesson in Greek grammar. And I promise it won't be too painful. And I was like, oh, everybody's going to groan, right? But she started jumping up and down. So that really like encouraged me. And I made it through. And my daughter's the only one who said she could tell I was nervous.
Right. Well, she knows you. So
Right.
But I had a lot of people come up to me. Nobody came up to me and said they didn't like it. But I had a lot of people come up and say that it really touched them. So
that's wonderful. And I'm glad because I feel like that's what you would need after something like this. You don't need to hear any whatever.
Right. So luckily, anybody that didn't like it didn't say so.
Right. Well, we can always polish our public speaking or whatever, but I'm sure that your message was exactly what was meant to be for that occasion.
Right.
So there's some interesting chat going on too. Robin says, I'm the opposite. I prefer a faceless large audience to a small group where I can see the eye rolls and disagreeing faces. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What about you ladies? How do you feel about speaking in groups?
I prefer, it's funny, I'm much like my kids. So like, if I know you, like you're my family, it's much harder to just stand up and perform for a room full of you. So like, but if you're a stranger and there's the same number of you, 5 strangers as opposed to 5 family members, it's a whole different thing. But even that is changing as I mature. And I realize as I have children of my own and I realize what a gift it is to like perform or something for your elders, that kind of changes. But that's when I feel the most vulnerable is when it's people who I really care what their opinion is of me. You understand what I'm saying? Like the rest of the world might think I'm a hack and who cares? But if people very special to me think that I stink on ice, that's going to hurt. So I would just prefer it to be strangers, no matter the number.
What about you, Rhonda?
Well, I guess it depends on the age group. If it's, let's say, under 9, it can be as big as it wants. If it's over, say, 60, it can be as big as it wants.
Those are your peaks right there, the over 60s.
Yes.
Well, because you know you're cute as a button. So the other generation are going to love you. And then you know you're a lot of fun. So the little kids are going to like you, right? And you're like, if I'm around a bunch of peers, then I have to be serious and like, you know, a grown up, and that's
Mhm.
terrible. Yeah.
It's
Maria-
so funny because I used to love kids until I worked for a pediatrician for 10 years.
Oh,
And now they really intimidate me. And I think it's because I was the lady with the needles.
Yeah.
And they always cried when I walked in the room. So
What about you, Jen? Do you like a big crowd or do you like a small group?
Well, I was just reading the chat too. And Maria says she prefers a smaller group. And Sage Gordon Davis says it doesn't matter to her either way. But she was commenting on what you said too, Jamie, that it makes sense that she said her brother is a professional trumpeter.
mhm.
And his teacher said that he always refused to perform for family because it's just too difficult to get past the nerves.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Mhm.
So for me, I don't think it matters. So I'm an introvert. Like I like to be home. I like to re-energize with a good book or whatever, but I'm not shy. So I actually just got a call this week from the same church. Tina and I go to the same church, and they want me to do a presentation on Sunday morning. And I'm like, all right, like, tell me what you need me to do. Like, I was just like, and I know that's why she called me, because there would be no like, oh, I don't know, like, you need it done. Okay. So like, I think there's something in me that like, I get kind of energized about being up in groups. And I think that maybe the bigger the group, the more electricity that I kind of feel that it feeds into me. So there must be some extrovert in me as well. But I don't mind doing Bible studies either. I kind of like, because the difference between a Bible study and like the large group thing, like what Tina did, is with Bible studies, you know that, or you should at least get interaction. So it's not all on you. What Tina was doing, it was all on her. And if there's going to be any interaction, it was totally 100% on what she was saying and doing. That's how the interaction is going to happen.
Mhm.
Where in a Bible study, there's going to be some back and forth. So I
Right.
guess it just depends on the situation. But yeah, I kind of like it all. I like speaking.
I mean,
in
I know
front of
that
people.
we're already 12 minutes in and we do have a timeline on this podcast, but I just want to sit here for a moment because I've actually begged my husband to allow me to see like his art, like his writing, or like if he ever wanted to practice the guitar or whatever, because the more you value someone's opinion, the less vulnerable you are likely to be about something that is artistic, because it is an expression of who you are. And so I'm like, be vulnerable with people that you want to love. And that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But
So, yeah.
But when we
go
say
ahead.
family, I think some of the conversation, like people are talking about the family is the worst, is what Robin said too, is that maybe we're not talking about our spouses, the people that we have a covenant with, a godly covenant with. We're talking about like, mother-in-laws or sister-in-laws or second cousins that you always compete with. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's more like that. So, Oh, Sage Gordon Davis says, I'm actually interviewing a local author at an event tomorrow, and I'm very nervous about it because my whole writing group is going to be there.
Oh.
I love
Oh,
interviewing.
I'm curious. Will she tell us
Yeah.
who?
Well, just
And where
remember,
is she from?
yeah, everybody wants you to succeed, Sage.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to show up in that environment and hoping that you're going to fail.
True.
So you're going to have everybody pulling for you. So don't worry about it. So where is she from? You're saying, Rhonda? I don't recall seeing her name before. I love that name. That's the name of a character in a work in progress I have shelved. I love that name.
Sage
Yep.
Gordon Davis.
Sage.
Wow, that's
What
amazing.
a coincidence.
What a
Like
coincidence.
Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. No, but just really Sage for sure is the name.
Love that.
Yes. Just for information, Sage joined us in the chat last week.
Oh, awesome. Okay. So, sorry, my daughter is blowing up my phone because she knows she can't come in here, so she's texting to me. So anyway, so did we get everybody's what's up? I lost
No,
track.
we missed Rhonda's.
No,
we
we
didn't
didn't
hear
hear that.
We didn't
and
hear
I
yours.
Oh, mine, my what's up. Well, I don't need to. I'll just say my husband was home this week, which was awesome. And I didn't do too bad with the rebound retail therapy because it is the season for gift giving. I was already slated to buy some gifts for people. So I got to do my retail therapy when he left without doing damage to our budget. Yay, me. And that is my what's up. Okay. So we do have a topic
no,
today.
Rhonda. We also have Rhonda.
Oh.
And before you start, Rhonda, Sage is from Free State of South Africa.
Woo,
Nice. Nice.
Okay.
Okay, so I really don't have much of what's up today. I've spent most of my time writing. I went Christmas shopping with my daughter yesterday, so I now have one gift.
Yay!
Not
What'd you
one
get
gift
me?
left. I have one.
What'd you get me?
I can't tell you. How did you know? Can you see it?
Well, the first million is the hardest, Rhonda. So
Yes.
it's all downhill from here. So
Yeah.
did you guys ever hear of that game where you start in December as a player, but the minute you hear Last Christmas by George Michael, you're out? Like, so when you're out, like doing Christmas, like the first time you hear it, you're eliminated. Anyway, I got eliminated this week. No, from like just the game. It's kind of just like something people do. So the farther you can make it into the Christmas season before you hear that song, you're, anyway,
well,
whatever.
Don't come to my house starting in like October.
All right. So, I think.
Hold on.
What?
Robin Sardi says, "Who's George Michael?"
He is. Sadly, he is dead, and I always hoped that he would turn Christian. He's a pop star, Robin. Long story short, and his height of fame was the '80s, and he was a very poetic songwriter. Yeah. And I always thought he could do wonderful things for the cause of Christ because his music was poetic to me. And sadly, he is passed away. So
yeah, go on YouTube and look up Wham, WHAM. He was the lead singer.
Or 1980s.
She got Whamageddon. Sage knows. Sage knows about Whamageddon.
Somewhere around Thanksgiving, she said. All right,
that's what it's called. That's hilarious.
It's great.
All right, Rhonda, I feel like we hijacked your.
You really didn't. I don't have a lot going on right now. I didn't get my walk in today, so I'm sad.
But have you had two of these? Because
no,
Jamie and I, just to let everyone who's like chatting right now know, Jamie and I are both over caffeinated right now.
Way over caffeinated.
Well, yeah, I am too. So
this is gonna be an interesting podcast.
This is twice the size of my normal coffee cup.
We're 16 and a half minutes in. We haven't even talked about the topic, so let's do that, shall we?
Okay.
We're supposed to be talking about, I wrote a novel. Now what? Because presumably that's the experience that we are all having coming out of November with National Novel Writing Month just behind us. And so that's my current reality. And I know it has been our reality in the past for some of us. And so we're going to talk about, here we go. We've got a first draft. Now what? So I think it would be kind of fun to talk about it in the ways of like do's and don'ts. So let's talk first about things you should not do now that you have written a novel. Anyone?
Do not hit publish.
Do not hit publish.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw in the chat that Maria submitted her fantasy novel yesterday to her publishers.
Yay!
So we can be hearing a lot from her in the chat today.
Now, I'm wondering, did she write that during Nano, or this is something that's from before, like that she's edited? And that's a good question. So let's stick that in the chat for us there. Yeah, I'm with Tina. Do not publish. There are so many people that self-publish that think, oh, I've written it. This is the greatest thing ever written, especially when it's the first book. Trust me, I was that person. I didn't hit publish, but as that person, I'm like, this is so great. Oh, because you love your characters. You're so excited that you finished a novel. You're like, I finally did it. And then you're like, this is so great. It's not. Trust me, it's not great. Like it can be good. And maybe you are the one in a million person that can just sit down and write and it will be great. But even if you give it a little time and do some of these things we're going to talk about here in a minute, it'll be even better. So just take a breather, right?
Yes, agreed. All right. What's another big don't for when you have finished your manuscript?
Don't put it away until the next Nano. I did that for years. Years.
So should you put it away at all?
I say about a month.
Okay. And because my thought was to share that you shouldn't try to edit it like right now, right? Like should you sit down on December 1st and start editing your November novel? I would argue no. I would argue you kind of put it away for a while. So what do you guys think about that?
Agreed. Sage says the same thing. She says, don't jump right into edits. You'll need distance and perspective to make the best it can be. Yeah.
Right.
What if you wanted to do another draft before you, not editing, but just you wanted to add more to it, or you wanted to
For me, that's part of editing too, though.
Me too.
So I guess it's just a terminology thing.
The only time that I would keep going right after on December 1st is if 50,000 words is not finished. Like if you wrote your 50,000 words, like for my novel is upwards of between 70 and 80,000 words. So there was still some writing to do on that.
Right.
I think
so
what
you
might,
yeah, go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
So I think what you're asking, Rhonda, is if you had done a beginning, a middle, and end But it wasn't done enough for you, and you went. So that I guess I don't consider that. That's still writing. Like if I don't feel like the story is finished and there's more to do, then that's still writing it. So that's not. Yeah. So and last year I got my 50,000 words in, but my novel wasn't finished, and I finished it in December. So yeah, I mean, I would keep going with that. So I'm sorry, JR.
No, that's okay. But then, so like Tina said, don't put it away and then not think about it again until November. So I suppose what you should do then, and that would go into our do column, would be to like maybe put a note in your calendar to bring that manuscript back out, to make a deal with yourself that you're going to start editing it in the month of March, or kind of, isn't there Nano Edmo, which is specifically for people to focus on editing their novel projects? I thought that there was.
Well, you can take April Camp Nano and do that, or July. Like there are settings in their website where you can do editing for it. And it's cool that you brought that up, because it's actually, we were asking about Maria's book, and she said that she edited it for Camp Nano, and then she proofread it over the last week. So
great.
So yeah, so like there are places in Nano for editing as well.
And that's wonderful too, because if you wanted to, you could have an annual writing process, right? I know that when it comes to be about March, that's going to be my season for editing. And it's very nice that National Novel Writing Month happens to kind of keep you on some kind of a rhythm that could be helpful towards your productivity, right?
Right.
So what if I got it fairly complete in November and I want to send it off to my alpha readers? That's okay, right? Like everybody?
I would not ever
think,
show.
Tina?
No. Don't think that you're going to get it edited in a month and send it out to beta readers and it's going to be great.
No, the alpha readers.
Alpha
readers? The ones just to, make sure the story's got consistency and the plot makes sense and all that.
I don't use alpha readers, plural. I would still say no. I would hold on to it. If you're going to do alpha readers, I would find one person you trust, one person because you're going to get a lot of, especially because it's still raw. So it's hard for a person to read, not for editing. And so you don't want them marking it all up when all you're looking for is story. And I believe that if you set it aside for at least 30 days, when you come back to it, you're going to find those holes that you're talking about. So I would say
you could be your own alpha reader is what you're saying, if you get distance from it. Yeah,
that's what I think. Like, I think that the best thing you can do is to put it aside and start a new project. Get your mind clear from it, start something new, because the writing's the fun part. Start a new exciting story. And then when you get bored with that one in a month, or you finish that one, whatever you're doing, what you're working on, then pull the other one out and then you read through it and you'll find holes. And then the next day, we've talked about editing before, like how I edit. I also listen to it, like using like the computer reading it back to me. You'll find holes that way too. So I would say before you send to alpha, go at least through those two stages, because you're gonna get better feedback from alpha readers. If you can find holes yourself that you know what you want fixed, then when you give it to them, you're gonna get better feedback, because they're gonna find things that you wouldn't have found on your own.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Have Microsoft Word read it to you. Because you're going to pick up all that stuff.
Yes. And here's how I treat my editors. I feel like time is money. And what you're really paying for, however, is their attention. They're paying very close attention to your project. And so I feel like it is a waste of my money and their time if I'm sending it to them and they're catching stuff that if I just would have been a little farther from the work, I would have caught myself. So I feel like it's a waste of their time and attention on something I could fix myself and then send it to them so that they could do the stuff that I wouldn't have caught. Because the whole point is to have like a fresh pair of eyes on it. Do you know what I'm saying? And so in other words, why am I paying for someone to remember to put the end quotation marks on the end of my sentences if that's something that I might have caught, so that their attention is free to see that she's wearing a blue dress when she was wearing a brown dress in the scene before. Do you see what I'm saying? So the cleaner my copy is before I send it away to anybody to look at or to edit, the more their attention is freed up to see stuff I wouldn't.
Now, here's a suggestion, though. Robin says that she does a breakdown of the story, and then she sends it to one or two writing friends to get an idea of the story and where I've gone off the rails.
That's good.
That's a good idea, because then we are only looking at the breakdown, maybe outline or whatever, to see, like, that way we're not actually looking at your writing, because it's so hard not to, right? And I say we, I mean whoever you send it to. But that kind of gets us into like the next don't. Would you guys agree? Is that don't send it to your mom, your dad, your cousin. Don't just send it out. Yeah. And why is that, do you think?
Well, okay. I mean, I think there are going to be exceptions here. So like, for example, I would not be surprised to learn that Rhonda's mom is considered like her alpha reader, right?
Yes.
But that's different. Okay. My mother has like the brain of an accountant. So I don't want to send her my rough draft that is not easily readable to anyone and expect her to pluck the gold out of it and tell me what an amazing story it is. It's not polished. It's not ready for her to enjoy yet. So it's kind of almost like you're shortchanging the reader and yourself if you're giving them something that's so raw. Imagine if you serve someone a bunch of oysters with sand all over them. They've got to deal with all this sand to try to enjoy I know, I don't need
which is already impossible.
But the point is, or okay, how about spinach? If you don't wash all the sand off your spinach, you're going to get gritty teeth, and that's going to detract from the enjoyment. So unless it's someone you are wanting to help you fix the work, you don't want to show them something before it's polished up and ready to be presented. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of the difference between rolling up in your new wheels before you've been to the car wash or after. What's going to make a better impression?
And I think if you give it to family members, one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to be falsely positive because it's you and they love you.
Yeah.
Or if they're one of those people that find it easy to criticize you, then they're going to find the flaws, and they're going to fail to point out the good stuff.
Yes, and you're going to want to say, just ignore all that. I'll fix that later. Tell me how you think the story is. And you're just going to miss each other.
Robin is on the same brainwave as Tina. She said, most moms, oh gosh, you wrote this amazing thing. I'm so proud of you. And then she said, my mom, let me tell you all the things you got wrong. And I used my English teacher's red pen.
That's adorable.
I think we may have the same mom.
I have a whole posse full of, we love this because it's from you. And that's very nice to have too. You know what I mean?
That was going to be my exception, is that when I wrote my first book, I had a good friend who also reads Christian romance. And when I'd finish a chapter, I'd send it to her. And and she was like, oh, this is so great. Oh, I can't wait for the next chapter. And I look back now and I'm like, oh, it was not that great. But she just was so excited to read it. And the story was at least there, and she was starting to learn the characters. And I think that she was integral in getting me really rooted in my career, because I needed a cheerleader then. I needed somebody. She's the only one that knew. My husband didn't even know that I was writing at that point. And I needed somebody just to say, yes, you are doing the right thing. And so I think that might be the exception.
I think that there's just a caution overall to exercise discernment here. I mean, what do you expect? You know these people that you're sharing your work with. And if you're honest with yourself about the kind of feedback you're likely to get, you're probably going to know this is not the person to send my rough draft to. Do you know what I'm saying? So that you can protect yourself and have what you need going forward to continue to be productive. You see? Because the last thing you need is for someone to tinkle all over your, you know how we only do positive feedback for our 15-minute sprints?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. We haven't polished it or edited this. We're not saying this is the best that I have to offer you. So we really don't need to hear how it's not perfect, because we already know.
Right.
So, okay, should we talk about our do's?
Yes.
So you finished writing a novel. What should you do?
Take a break.
Take a break. Take a break from your career altogether. What do you mean?
No, from that novel. Get your mind on something else for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrate.
Yes,
like, seriously,
you
every
did
time,
it.
The very first novel I finished, I did a video, right? To put on and I just put it for you guys to see. And I was like, like, sometimes I celebrate with things I shouldn't, like cupcakes or whatever, but I do something. You have to do something to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's interesting too, because a lot of writers will have sort of a little ceremony or ritual that they do. Mm-hmm. They'll either have their ceremonial cocktail if they're so inclined, or they'll have like some ritual that they do at the end of every book. And that can be kind of fun. I mean, why not create rewards for yourself? What is the harm? What is the harm in saying, good job. You made a commitment and you honored it. So celebrate. Take some time. What else should you do when you finish writing a novel?
Jamie and I like to talk about book covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we are totally like, there have been a few times that Jamie and I are been late at night, which is 8:00 for me. When we've been like completely brain dead and we know we should be working, there have been lots of conversations with pictures back and forth in Facebook Messenger. Some of them just to get a laugh from each other. We like to work on Tina's covers. We went on a retreat once and I was sending lots of pictures to Tina for her cover. I don't know why she didn't want to use any of them that I found, but
well, like a lot of them were little fat Eskimo cartoons.
But so that's fun. But like it is, if like some people don't want to leave their novel because they're so excited about the characters and the story. That's fine. Start looking for pictures. Start looking for book cover inspiration and make a Pinterest board for it and things like that. So do other creative things about your book that isn't writing or editing.
Well, how about you get that social media platform started? I mean, if you go back into our archives, you can find lots of help there. Even if you had decided you were going to traditional pub, they'd expect you to have some sort of a social media presence. So take that time when you are not actively editing or writing to get your social media presence together, right? Mm-hmm. Start to research editors and the people who are going to help you make your book a publishable project. But let the book itself sit and so that you can come back to it to do your first edits with fresh eyes. I think that's kind of the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. I have a course that I purchased on, oh my gosh, what happened to Jamie?
Oh, just keep going.
I have a course that I purchased, cover design for authors.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And as soon as I'm done with my editing and send it off, then that's when I'm going to do that. So that's another idea of something that you could do to enrich your knowledge. So if you're a self-published author, you might want to design your own cover too. So yeah,
I did my own covers and I took that course.
Right.
So
Your covers are beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't trying to like get a compliment, but I just want to see that like you can put out quality, but don't try to do your own book cover if you're not educated.
It's a whole other episode for sure. And so you may wonder, well, what do you mean about that? Well, guess what? The time between actively writing and actively editing is to find out what we mean about that. Okay. So if people urge you not to make your own book cover, well, why? Well, educate yourself and learn those reasons, right? There's so much to self-publishing a book that has nothing to do with writing or editing. Would you agree, ladies?
Yes.
All right. So do you think we've covered this topic or does
One more thing.
Yep.
One more thing. And it is the absolute most important thing to do now that you finish your novel. Start the next book.
Yeah.
If I could do it over, I'm really glad that I've already published. I really do say that. But I wish I would have had book 3 completely done. I wish I'd had all the books done before I started publishing, because I cannot tell you, every day when I go pick up my kids from school, when I go to church, anytime I see another person that knows me or has read my books, how's the next book? When's it coming out? And it's like, plus the fact that like I just know that how the algorithms, like with Amazon and all the other booksellers, like if you put your books out more often, then you get more promotion.
So if you have a series waiting to go and you actually schedule yourself, I'm going to launch this one in May and this one in July and this one at Christmas, you can manage the hype and the gathering and following of your readers, and you can build that into, a momentum and kind of a snowball.
Yeah. So you're excited about this book. We get it. We've all been there. We get it. Take a deep breath and get excited about the next book. Trust me on this. You will be very, very grateful that you did that.
Yeah. So let me just explain. Sorry about that. My son is going to grandma's, but he is woefully underprepared. And so I'm having some interruptions. So if I go dark or stop talking, it's because I don't want you to hear a bunch of panic in the background. Okay. So, moving on then, unless you all have something else to say, do's or don'ts about now that you've written a novel, what now? Okay, so then we're going to move on to my favorite part of the podcast. This is the feeding of the Becks. The what? Well, this is the opportunity in the show for us to offer feedback to one another. And the joke is your back well fed so that we can move on? And then once the person has received adequate feedback, we move on. So it's the feeding of the backs, and we are going to give only positive, encouraging feedback on these little stories that we wrote in only 15 minutes. If you would like to participate, you can set a timer for 15 minutes and write under what is the prompt, Jen?
Today's prompt. I didn't write it down. It's on Twitter. Hold on a second.
Two people meet for the first time.
Yeah, two people see each other for the first time.
Thank you.
That's all right. Is your story up, Jen, or should I jump
It
to
is.
All right, go, Jen.
It is. I like
making you go first.
I know you do. And normally I write the prompt at the top, and for some reason this time I didn't. So
Aww.
Two people see each other for the first time. Took me a while to get there, but this is ridiculous, Nina said. Jenny turned around. What did you say? She shouted. Nina sighed, then shouted back, this is ridiculous. Never in my life have I had to stand in line just to use the bathroom. Jenny laughed. That's because you never go bar hopping with us. Nina rolled her eyes at her friend who had turned her attention back to the door of the ladies' room, oblivious to the actual level of irritation that Nina was feeling right now. No, Nina never did do the bar scene that her friends were so fond of. Most of her Friday and Saturday nights were filled with catching up on studying and papers that she had gotten behind on during the week. Working 2 jobs just to stay in the rich kids' school she attended did not afford itself to leisure time on the weekends. And now, as she stood patiently waiting to use the bathroom, that would no doubt be less than cleanly. I don't know if that's the right word or not. Getting jostled by drunk girls that were exiting as this said facility, Nina had a real difficult time remembering why she had decided to go into the bar with her friends this evening. Nina lifted her long dark hair off her neck. It was November in Boston, and temperatures outside were most likely hovering somewhere near 30 degrees. But in here, it had to be 130. Nina cursed her stupidity. Her friends all wore short-sleeved shirts and left their winter coats in the dorm. They had convinced Nina to leave her coat behind as well, since they would be stepping from their warm dormitory into a warm cab, then into a warm bar. But they hadn't been able to convince her to change from her long-sleeved polo rugby shirt. She should have listened to them. She let her hair fall back down her back, except for an errant section of locks that always chose to flutter near her face. She really should cut her hair. Most of her friends had shorter styles, but Nina liked her long hair. She didn't care that it made her look old-fashioned. She turned her head to brush the last few strands over her shoulder. That's when she saw him. Across the bar, surrounded by a host of other guys, stood a guy much taller than the rest. He didn't have to strain to see over anyone's head. He just merely looked, and he was looking at Nina. Nina quickly turned her attention back to focus on the back of Jenny's head. She must be wrong. That guy was gorgeous. Couldn't be looking at her. But just to be safe, Nina slowly turned back in his direction, expecting the guy to be gone, or at the very least, looking at someone else. But he wasn't. He was still there, and he was still looking at her.
Why do I picture her looking like you?
Why is that?
This is actually a story from my life. Seriously?
I knew that.
Well,
I could tell with the Boston and the long dark hair.
I guess I'll go to the bar with you.
Yeah. You had me at the polo rugby shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably going to change, because if I write this story, it's going to be fictional. I'm not going to tell but I'm using something that actually happened in my own life. Yeah, that was for sure something we wore back then. And if this character is in her 20s, even her 30s, she wouldn't have worn that. But I did. It was yesterday.
Yeah, and that lended an element of authenticity to the scene, because that's actually something that you lived, and you weren't just kind of throwing long polo sleeve shirt in there to tell us what time it was, but because you included that detail, it put us into a time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And because you said you didn't cut your hair short and it made you look old fashioned, that also put us into a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really great to set the setting without blatantly saying. Mm-hmm. The only thing that was missing was are you listening to Criss Cross? What music is playing?
Hootie and the Blowfish. Oh yeah,
Hootie and the Blowfish.
In the background.
Yeah.
Part of me really wants to write it in that time period, but then the character would have to be in her 40s, which is fine, but it doesn't match the story that I'm doing. And yeah, I don't know what to do with it yet.
Right. That's great. I really enjoyed that.
It's going to be very therapeutic, I think, to write this one.
All right.
Well, I'll go next.
Oh, I was going to say I should probably go next, because I also wrote a romance.
Yeah, then go next. Go next for sure. Usually I don't get volunteers, so I'll take it.
Okay. Well, let me get it open here. All right, here we go. Charlie was nervous. He didn't know why his human daddy had put him in his carrier, but the last time they'd gone to the place where they'd gone to the place where the strange lady took him away and poked him with something sharp. He didn't want to go there ever again. His heart was pumping in his chest and he was breathing hard. The car stopped and the grandma turned off the humming sound. Daddy opened the door. The cold air brushed against Charlie's fur, and there were so many sounds it made his head spin. He pressed his ears flat against his head. In no time, they were inside, and Charlie froze. The smells in this place. Other bunnies. He'd smelled animals at the other place, but not bunnies. Daddy put his carrier down on the floor and opened the door. Charlie backed further into his carrier. If he didn't come out, they couldn't poke him. But then Daddy pulled out the treat can and shook it. Charlie took a slow step forward. Daddy put the wrinkled brown fruit on the floor just beyond the door. Charlie moved forward faster than he should have and grabbed the delicious morsel. He turned to run back in, but Daddy had taken his carrier away. He looked around the X-pen he was in. Interesting toys littered the floor. He bumped the plastic baby keys with his nose. He spotted a cardboard box in the corner and ran to it, hiding inside. But all the toys in the bin of hay were just too tempting, and in only a few minutes he was out again, exploring and tasting the hay.
Aww.
This wasn't anything like the last place. This place made him happy. The joy overwhelmed him, and he jumped straight up, twisting his tail in the air. Then a strange lady stepped into the pen and sat on the floor. Was she going to poke him? Wait. She had someone in her lap. Charlie stared. The most beautiful girl bunny Charlie had ever seen stared back at him. He moved toward her. The woman put her on the floor. This is Bernadette, the woman said. Bernadette began cleaning her ears as if Charlie wasn't there. Charlie hopped up to her, sniffing her nose, and then put his head on the floor to ask for grooming. This offended Bernadette, and she thumped at him, running to the other side of the pen to resume her ear washing. Charlie was disappointed, but he refused to give up. He sat opposite her and began to wash his own ears. He would bide his time, go slower, win her heart. Bernadette stopped washing her ears to watch Charlie. After several minutes, she hopped up to him and put her head on the floor. Pure joy flooded Charlie. This was the best day of his life.
I'll bet. There's a certain Four Seasons song that is coming to my mind right now. That's great.
What song?
Four Seasons.
Oh.
Anyway, that's so cute. And I gotta say, I completely forgot that you said that it was a romance. So I was all into the mystery of like, where is Charlie going? And I was totally like, oh, he's at like bunny daycare. I totally forgot that you said it was going to be a romance. And then I'm like, oh no, this is a matchmaker. So fun that Charlie went to the bunny matchmaker. All right. I love that.
Yeah, me too. I totally remember that it was romance. That's why I went, oh no, Charlie. I was like, I don't know where this is going. I'm a little nervous. That was great, Tina.
Thanks.
Really good. How fun. Okay, I'll go next just so it's not my voice for too long in a row, Rhonda. Write about two people seeing each other for the first time. Okay, here's what came out. Sorry in advance. I do not own the rights to any of these characters, nor do I wish to be sued, so just do whatever you need to make this legal. All right, are you ready? The first time Yoda saw Baby Yoda was when the latter was leaving hair and makeup and walked past the chair in which Yoda sat. Yoda caught something moving in the corner of the mirror where he'd been staring at himself, draped with one of those black plastic capes that keep the hair off your clothes but do nothing for your figure. Thinking about how much his head looked like a misshapen scoop of pistachio ice cream sitting on top of a rotting avocado. She didn't say a word, but Yoda noticed the girl who was working on him, combing upward in long, slow strokes, delicately trimming minuscule bits of the fine strands away before repeating the process again and again, turned to watch Baby Yoda go by, flashed him a smile, as if begging silently to be noticed. Work on him, she'd rather. And why shouldn't she? Though Yoda had never met the smaller and younger version of himself, he did not live under a rock. He did not. He'd seen the coverage of the new kid. And as far as what that would mean for Yoda's career, the jury was still out. In the strange machinery that is the Hollywood industrial complex, many characters had lives into a franchise extended indefinitely by characters reappearing in holograms and the like. But Yoda wondered if something different was in store for his character's fate. His thoughts turned to the franchise fan base. What would they clamor for? Surely the studio would have people asking. For the first time in what was probably a dozen years, he started to wonder if perhaps he ought to think of something friendly to say to his hairdresser. Her name, what is? Melissa, he remembered. He wondered if he should maybe ask her if she had any family, but then realized that his secretary had likely been sending Christmas presents in his name to her house for the duration of their relationship. As he thought of and discarded several conversation starters, he began to feel a sense of panic closing in. How was he to win fans to his side, to have them demanding that he always be at least something, that he would not be replaced by this tiny gremlin, but would instead continue on the scene as the older, wiser version of it? He was ejected from the chair with the customary politeness, as he always was, before he could think of anything he could say to the hairdresser. He sighed as he shuffled out of hair and makeup and found himself a cruller and a chair, the sweet crumbs making the disappointment that his competition was even cuter in real life than the pictures had portrayed, just a little bit easier to swallow.
Oh, loved it, I did. Oh,
That was the best comment ever.
poor Yoda. Oh, shuffling away for his little cruller. Oh. You've got to submit that to a fanfic site. Oh my word, that was
Something.
great.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was so great. Maria says, best description of Yoda ever. Agreed. So good.
Oh, I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. I have no idea why I wrote that. I guess just because like Baby Yoda is like so everything. And then you're just like, well, nobody's thinking about regular. Remember that meme I shared, Rhonda?
Yes. Yes.
I never saw this meme that you shared with Rhonda.
Oh,
where did you share it?
She shared it on her page. It's
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she shared it to your page, so I went to your page looking for it. Well,
yeah, it's so cute. All right,
Yeah,
so
memes of him are everywhere.
I know, and nobody thinks about regular old Yoda.
Especially in my rabbit groups on Facebook, because they kind of look like rabbit ears.
Mm-hmm.
So there's rabbits whose ears go out to the side, and people are like putting them side by side in all these memes and stuff.
It's almost like, though, you feel like Yoda is analog and Baby Yoda is MP3, right? So you kind of feel like Baby Yoda is like the laboratory cleaned up, like what Yoda was supposed to be for us, right? Cute and lovable, and you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like, I don't know, just really an interesting thing to think about. Okay, so what do we got? Rhonda, what did you write for us?
All right, well, this will be quick. I have learned something about myself the last couple of weeks, trying to do these sprints in my characters for my nano novel. It takes a lot more thought, and I don't have time in 15 minutes, so I think I won't do that anymore. But anyway, so here's my 200 words. The cowbell on the door clanged, jolting Jake into choking on the coffee he just slurped. He didn't mind the quaint alarm, but he wasn't used to it. The diner in Flint had a quiet one that sounded in the kitchen, and no one in the diner turned to greet the new customer either. Jake was alarmed when David, his breakfast companion, waved his arm frantically at whoever sounded the cowbell. Jake turned to find out what the reason was. It was two women who were now walking towards their table. Versions of "Good morning, Andra" were coming from all around him. Jake recognized this woman from his short time here in Landon, but not the one following her. The new one was dressed big city. Not Flint big city, but Chicago or Manhattan big city. He immediately felt drawn to her, not because her eyes remained sad while her mouth smiled at the people who greeted her, but because she looked like she was new here too. Jake formed the beginning of a plan to show her around town, what he knew of it so far. I wonder if she likes antiques. As far as I got.
I love it. Read that line again about the big town. About
she dressed big city. Not Detroit big city.
Yeah.
Chicago or New York big city. Yeah.
That was so good. Yeah. That was really good. Because that gives us a clue, right? Because like I have lived in Boston and I'm from here. There's a difference. Every big city, it is different. And so, yeah. Wow.
I mean, there's a reason why you ain't from around here, are ya? It's such a trope. It's because you can't help but stick out if you dress big city and then you go to a place like that. Like people are going to recognize that there's something different going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska, and in the summers we would go to New York City to visit my dad's family. He was from Brooklyn. And we would go shopping in downtown New York and in Manhattan, and I would come home with these outfits that did not fit in at all because the fashion was about 6 months ahead.
Only 6 months? That's surprising.
Yeah, it would take about 6 months I think it was because of me, because I would come back, with these fashions, and then everybody would want it. It would probably been a lot longer if I hadn't gone.
Yeah, I have a friend who
butterfly effect.
He started dressing like an 80s hair band from like Tiger Beat or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? But like way before anybody in his school ever did. And so he's like, I was like the trendsetter, suddenly everybody looked like Duran Duran, because he started it. Is kind of neat how that works. Okay. So
Sage says that is honestly such a great description.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we have to move into the accountability corner. Nobody's favorite part of the episode, although really we should treasure it and value it, because if someone's going to ask you, have you made any progress? You're a whole lot more likely to actually make some progress. So actually, we do look forward to this because it helps us to stay on track with our writing goals. So with all that said, who wants to be brave and go first? Anyone?
I'll do it.
All right, go Tina. What did you say you would do? Did you do it? What are you going to do for next week?
I don't remember what I said I was going to do, but maybe it was 5 pages a day. And I did a lot more than that. I stepped up my game because as I was going through, what I had done is taken my manuscript and moved it all over into Google Docs. And I had put it all into red. Like I did select all and did all the type in red. And then as I was going, I was changing it to black. So I knew exactly where I was. And as I was going, I realized there was a section missing out of it that had somehow not gotten moved over to Google Docs. So I had to go and get that. And when I did that, my total number of pages I still had to go went from 40 to 70.
Oh.
It was a big chunk that was missing.
Yeah.
And so I decided I was going to try to get 10 pages a day done so that I can still get this done before Christmas.
That's really cool. Good for you for adapting so that you could still meet that deadline.
Yeah.
So
I'm averaging 8 to 11 pages a day. So
and do you still want to say that you'll do 5 pages a day so that you know?
No, I need to do more than that. I need to do at least 8 or 10.
All right.
But I'm going to try for more.
Good for you. Way to go.
Now, these pages, they needed more work, right? So how much of a struggle is that going to be to add the extra pages and the extra work?
Well, some of it is like I added a couple storylines and I switched around a couple storylines since I wrote that stuff. So some of it I'm just going to be deleting. But then there's stuff that has to be written because there was part of it that didn't make sense when I read through it, and I needed to add some scenes from Chugiak's point of view so I could get him from point A to point B, because Angelica was going on a hang glider, and there's no way she's taking Chugiak on a hang glider.
Chugiak is a dog, by the way.
Like she's already going tandem on this hang glider with this guy, so I had to add some scenes, and so it changed the rest of it a little bit. So there's a little bit of fresh writing I have to do, but it hasn't been bad. I've already got it all daydreamed in my head. So
And do you guys mind if I go second, just because Tina and I kind of find ourselves in a similar kind of, well, and Jen too, I guess. But I'm trying to explain to my husband why I'm having such a hard time editing this book. And the problem is you are just so a different writer. Even a year from the day that you stop writing something, if you keep writing, you're going to become better. And so then to go back and try to edit something that you wrote 10 years ago is like, you're not even the same person. Like, even biologically, your cells have regenerated themselves. And so how can you write? And then when you find out, like Tina did, that you can't put the dog on a hang glider, so now you have to write a whole new scene. How do you match the voice of the person you were 15 years ago when you drafted this book? You have to make a choice. You're either not going to try and, oh, well, some of it's going to stick out and be weird, or you have to work really hard to try to make it all seamless. That means fixing the old stuff to be in your new voice. And a lot of people are going to say, well, why would you not then just rewrite? And what they don't understand is not all of it needs to be scrapped, because the reason you wanted to be a writer in the first place is because you could write some. So it's not like the whole thing is a total loss, but it's a matter of trying to make the whole thing look like it belongs together instead of that it was written by two people.
Agreed.
And it's such a challenge. And that's why it's so slow and why you can't really predict how long it's going to take you. It's not just a matter of searching for commas. It's a matter of like fashioning the story.
Right. I haven't even looked at commas yet. I'm just in revision to make sure the story makes sense. And
and that's kind of, and that's kind of where I am too. And so my next edit through will be stuff like, oh, did I write THEIR, but I meant THERE? Do you know what I mean? So like this edit is for making sure the piece actually works, for lack of a better term. So anyway, my goal was to spend an hour a day, and I blew it. My husband was in town, so all bets were off. Whenever I could, I was with him doing what he was doing. And so
we will not hold that against you.
Thank you. And then he had to leave sooner than we thought too. So that was kind of a bummer, but good for me. I logged on yesterday and worked at night, even though I had missed office hours. So I'm very happy with the progress that I made, but I should be doing so much more than I am. And this is why I'm so upset with myself, because it's just a matter of doing the work, but it's just so hard. It's so hard to do this thing where you're trying to like salvage something. And so that's why I think Tina's advice of don't put the thing away until 10 years from now is such good advice. Get it edited while you're still the same writer. It's better to have it published and look back and say that was my early work than to be trying to do what I'm doing now, because it's kind of a nightmare. Is that how you feel, Jen?
Yeah, totally. Well, I wouldn't have. I'm glad I didn't hit publish on this. I think mine is much worse off than what yours is. Plus, it's book 3 in a series, so it has to be seamless with the other 3 books, because book 4 is finished. Just needs to be edited.
So you have even more parameters to shape your piece to fit.
Right. So I was not on the podcast last week, so I didn't have any goals this week, which I met those. Not having any goals, I didn't really do anything. No, just kidding. It is slow, like what Jamie said, but it is a forward moving progress. Yeah. I have one chapter that I'm like, wow, I had 3 scenes, and in total it was like 5,000 words for this chapter. I'm like, what? It's because I had 3 versions of the scene. And so the first one was what I thought I was going to go with. And you ladies might remember that it was the chapter where I took the whole dinner scene out, just took it out. And so the chapter I think is fine. I thought it was fine without it. And then I went and read the other 2 versions, and I'm like, crap. Not just because I love the dinner scene, but there are actual plot things that happen in the dinner scene. Because you guys know how I write. I put lots of Easter eggs in. There are things that have to be somewhere in the story, and I had to figure out how to work them in without making this chapter like info dumpy or ridiculously. So I printed out the wrong chapters, and I highlighted the things that I felt needed to be in. And then I went back through and was fixing them, and I realized some of the things I highlighted, I was like, no, you know what? I'm just going to give up that plot point. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then there are some things I'm like, no, I definitely need that. So that was good for me. So I feel like I didn't do a whole lot. I worked on one chapter all week, and it's still not done, but it's better than it was on Monday. So I feel pretty good about that. So as far as moving forward, by next week, hopefully I'll have that chapter done. Honestly, I'm not going to, I have to get, it's at the beginning. It's like chapter 2 or 3, I think chapter 3. It's gotta be right because I don't want to lose my readers early on. And so, and because it affects so much more later on in the story. So, once I get past this chapter, I have a couple chapters that will be smooth sailing. And then I hit another one that is going to be the same thing, because when you outline, you have parts of the story that are, your pivotal point, you've got your disasters, you have things that you have to hit. And those are the most crucial. So this week I'm going to be working on that chapter 3 and getting it to where I feel like that it's worthy. So
awesome. All right, Rhonda. Now you probably have a good report, right? You've been working like a little.
I have been working
a little elf, some might say. You wouldn't, but I would.
Right. Okay, so I think my goal last week, was to be at the halfway point of the second draft of my nano novel. Okay. And I'm solidly there. And I think my goal you're asking for Christmas Day goals, and that was to be all done with my second draft. And I still think I can probably meet that. I did have my alpha reader begin, so she's following behind me.
Good.
And so there's some really great improvements.
Yes.
So
is your alpha reader your mom? We kind of hinted, but we didn't ask you.
I don't know how you guessed that. I thought it was going to be a secret.
We love Barb.
So anyway, it's going to be, I'm really excited about this. It's going to be hard for me to put it down after Christmas, but I will.
Oh, you're going to take a break from it so you can have fresh eyes when you come to it.
Yes, but I have an idea for the novel after, so I'm excited to start on the outline too. So it'll be a little easier to put it down.
Yay, that's awesome.
So excited.
So shall we check out the chat for a little bit?
Yeah, there's a lot in the chat.
Yeah.
Sage says, I'm also behind. I have 9 days left to get my first draft to my publisher, and I'm nowhere near where I should be. We feel you, Sage. We feel you. Mm-hmm. Maria says, accountability corner. I hit my goal of sending my fantasy novel to my publisher yesterday.
Awesome.
Now planning on getting back to editing my third historical fiction novel. Great.
Terrific.
She's also jotting down some ideas. Notebook. I'm hoping to make some progress with that. That's great news. Robin, I swear I saw Robin's accountability in here. So, just real quick.
Well,
here we go.
Yeah,
She's
ahead.
behind as well. I'm behind my progress to get the book finished before the end of the year. We hear you, sister.
Yeah.
We hear you.
And the Christmas season is so easy to get distracted.
It very much is, and there's a lot of demands on your time, and so hang in there, everybody, and keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep working. The whole how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep taking those little bites, okay? And we'll check in next Friday. So what else should we cover? Anybody got any last words for this podcast? No? All right. So that concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.